In this section, I will now discuss some practice cues that can be used to help a player improve their instep soccer kick in the game or practice situation. The soccer players can use this to evaluate themselves, and it can be used for players as young as just starting off or all the way up to the professional level. There's no age restriction for who can perform the proper soccer kick. Some may learn quicker than others, but it is a basic skill that every soccer player needs to attain in order to be successful on the field. All soccer players should be cognizant of all the criteria that I'm about to list in order to perfect the instep soccer kick. To begin, I will list off the 5 criteria that I'm going to that I would test on a soccer player. And then there's 3 levels of scoring. The first is the angle of approach, and then the plant leg position, then the range of motion of the backswing, and then the ball contact phase, and then the follow through phase. To begin, I will discuss the angle of approach. According to Gong Bing Shan and his colleagues, the correct angle of approach is necessary to properly execute a driven instep soccer kick. About 2 to 4 steps are taken while approaching the ball. The importance of the angle of approach is to increase the potential contribution of trunk rotation in kicking power. A perfect angle of approach would be about 40 to 45 degrees and would give the player a perfect score. And this goes for male or female athletes as well. Approaching the ball from a too acute or obtuse angle would not allow much power to be generated when striking the ball, and they would get an average score for a too wide or short angle. A player that would need a lot of practice is one who approaches the ball straight on or from directly sideways, a perfect 90-degree angle. Neither of these would allow the player to generate much power and would sure not allow accuracy either. The accuracy and power would be little because there'd be little trunk rotation, and the body would not be able to perform at its highest efficiency level. The next criteria is the plant leg position. The plant leg positioning is vital to determine the direction of the ball and for the amount of power generated when striking the ball. And this is from an article Shan, Shan, and his colleagues wrote the information I'm about to tell you. The last step and stride of the planting foot is crucial. A lot of people think it's just the kicking leg, but the plant leg that plants right next to the ball is crucial for the whole kick to go properly. The ideal position of the plant leg beside the ball is pointing towards the toes, and the foot will be pointing towards the direction the ball needs to go. It allows for proper foot to ball contact to be made. If the foot is too far out or too close to the ball, it won't. The kicking leg will not be able to swing properly all the way through. Specifically for the driven instep soccer kick, if the foot is slightly behind the ball will shoot more up vertically. On the other hand, if the foot is planted too far in front of the ball will hardly leave the ground, and it will be a driven kick. Both of these could be used in a game situation, but for the instep soccer kick that I'm discussing throughout this presentation, it needs to be a medium-high driven ball. The ideal distance for a driven instep kick is when the supporting foot is about 1 to 1.5 feet from the ball. This will also help the angle of approach. The next section is the range of motion of the backswing. The range of motion of the backswing is important for generating power along with precision. This is all from Barras and his colleagues as well. And the increased rotation of the pelvis and extension of the hip opens up the hip and provides the player with a greater range of motion. So the greater range of motion allows the player to remain in contact with the ball for a longer period of time as they strike with greater accuracy. So we, running up to get full power, we want the hip fully extended and abducted backwards. If the hip does not go all the way back, not as much power will be generated, and that will give the player, if it just goes a medium way back, that will give the player about an average score. If the player has no range of motion in their backswing, they will get a very low score on the practice cues rubric, and will entail a lot more practice in order to generate the flexibility in the hip and the power. The hip extension also allows for pelvic rotation, and without that, the ball's not going to go very far. In the ball contact phase, Kellis and Caddis report that striking the ball higher towards the dorsal side of the foot generates the greatest ball speed. So right here on your foot, it will be, you want to make contact with the ball like right here, right on about your first metatarsal. And for an advanced score, the first few metatarsals should be the contact point during plantar flexion of your foot to ball contact. If the contact point is on like the upper ankle bones, the player will get an average score. They're getting the right idea and the right part of your foot, but they may need to correct their plantar flexion in order to get the ball contact further down on their foot. Striking the ball with the toes will give you a low score. That is a great way to injure yourself, and it also generates very little power, and it's called a toe ball. If you do a toe ball, that will show that the player needs much more practice in order to perfect the ball contact phase. Lastly, we will evaluate the player on the follow-through phase. The follow-through phase is vital for decelerating the kicking leg to ensure effectiveness of the kick and to prevent injury. Shifting the weight forward while kicking will help the player maintain stability and promote accuracy as well. It's important to maintain contact with the ball all the way through the motion and land on the kicking leg. A player who is kicking and does not swing all the way through and lands on the kicking foot is on the right track but still needs work. A player who forcibly stops the kicking leg forward still needs lots of practice. Kicking and stopping right here will not generate much power at all, and can cause a lot of injuries in your quad or hamstrings or your hip flexors, because abrupt stopping is not good for the muscles or for the body as a whole. So getting a perfect score would be swinging all the way through, landing on that plant foot, and your body coming to a complete stop. The results show that, so for the advanced stage, you could get a 15 out of 15 if you do each step perfectly all 3 times. An average score would be getting a 2, doing it right 2 out of 3 times, and this would be a score about overall 6 to 10. That would give you an average score. And if you need a lot of practice, you're only getting a 0 or 1 out of 3 times, then you're below average and you need a lot of practice. And so the results show areas of weakness and what you need to work on in order to improve your in-step soccer kick, including range of motion, making sure your center of gravity is right, and making sure you're performing all of the necessary steps on the right plane, and using the right speed and momentum as well.